You might not even know it, but we're in the middle of one of the biggest events in gaming history, and Sweet Baby Inc. is just a piece of this giant puzzle. Because the events that will follow in the next 5 to 10 years will change how we buy, own, and play video games. But today we will be focusing on Sweet Baby Inc. and how this one single company has been destroying games and franchises for the last 6 years, and the events that took place in the last few weeks, which might have just set in motion one of the biggest events in recent gaming history. But let's start by explaining what Sweet Baby Inc. is and what exactly do they even do. Sweet Baby Inc. is a Canadian narrative development and consultation studio founded by two former Ubisoft developers, Belair and David. They have worked with huge game studios like Ubisoft, EA, Valve, Square Enix, and the list goes on and on. And what this studio does is they consult with game development companies specifically about inclusion and representation in video games, which is probably something you noticed if you played a AAA game in the last few years. There seems to be a big focus on representation of LGBTQ characters and other marginalized communities, which by itself is not a bad thing because everyone likes to be able to relate to characters they play in video games, and they like to see themselves represented in the media they consume. But this becomes a problem when game developers start to prioritize inclusion and virtue signaling over good stories and engaging gameplay. And there's plenty of examples that show exactly what their priorities were. Like Saints Row, they released in 2022, which was a complete disaster and basically destroyed the legacy of a beloved franchise, where the story was awful and the gameplay made you want to uninstall the game before finishing the first mission. But hey, at least there's an LGBTQ flag in your apartment and all of your friends are anti-capitalist college students. And what about Skull and Bones, a game that was basically the last nail in the coffin for Ubisoft, where they promised incredible naval battles and open-world exploration, which turned out to be a boring boat simulator. But hey, at least 90% of the characters in that game are anti-capitalist people of color. I think you get the point. Gamers are angry not because they are some kind of racist bigots, but because their favorite games and franchises are being destroyed. Now you might be wondering, if Sweet Baby Inc. is destroying every single game they touch, why do game development companies even work with them, and more importantly, why do game companies care so much about inclusion and representation when it's been proven time and time again that gamers don't care about it? Well, to keep it brief, most of it has to do with ESG points. Environmental, social, and governance scores are a tool for investors to assess a company's sustainability and ethical performance, meaning that if a game, movie, or some other piece of media is not quote-unquote woke enough, they lose funding. To me, it's still a mystery why they use these points, but that's a topic for a different video. Now, a few weeks ago, a big event unfolded on Steam and Twitter that basically started this entire disaster. A user by the name of Kabrudu started a Steam curator page called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, listing all the games that have been in some way involved with Sweet Baby Inc. At first, the page had a few hundred to a few thousand followers and was relatively small. However, that would change when Sweet Baby Inc. employees aggressively tried to get the page removed for targeted harassment, and unintentionally started the famous Streisand effect. For those of you who don't know what the Streisand effect is, it's an event named after an actress, Barbara Streisand, who started a $50 million lawsuit against a photographer who took pictures of her Malibu mansion for the purposes of studying coastal erosion. At first, the picture was only seen by 6 people, 2 of which were her lawyers. But as a result of this public lawsuit, the picture has now been seen by tens of millions of people online. So in her attempt to hide and censor this image, she unintentionally made it incredibly popular, which is exactly what happened with Sweet Baby Inc. The Steam page would have only been seen by a few thousand people at most, and now that the Sweet Baby Inc. employees had tried to get the page taken down, it's exploded to more than 270,000 followers and has probably been seen by millions of people. The Sweet Baby employee that started all of this goes by the name of Chris Kindred, and these are the tweets that completely backfired on the entire company.
The Steam Curator harassment group, Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, is led by this person. Here's them trying to be slick so they don't get reported. Even with the discriminatory language filed off, the group itself still fails the code of conduct. Anyway, report the frick out this group. And report the creator since he loves his account so much.
But the worst part is, all major gaming media outlets started reporting on this entire situation, and most of them sided with Sweet Baby Inc., which made the entire situation even worse. There have been hundreds of articles trying to convince gamers that Sweet Baby Inc. is not responsible for destroying games, and that everyone is completely wrong. As I said, there are hundreds of these articles, but I'll just show you one of them.
Sweet Baby Inc. isn't forcing diversity, it's happening naturally. Though these kinds of social media posts argue that companies like Sweet Baby Inc. somehow force game studios to include diverse characters and storylines, the reality is vastly different. Sweet Baby Inc. is a narrative design company, meaning most of its work is focused on writing stories and dialogue. They are not a DEI consultancy firm. That means they ensure a game's plot points make logical sense and are satisfying to players, and that characters speak and behave in consistent ways. Narrative designers may also provide a final round of polish, like a Hollywood script doctor. For example, the team worked on Suicide Squad long after the story was written, and even then they joined just to write in-game ads, audio logs, and NPC barks.
Now, all of these articles seem to claim that people just don't know what Sweet Baby Inc. actually does, but taking a closer look at the games they worked on shows that they're basically involved in every step of the process, even in major roles as lead scriptwriters, which in fact makes them very involved with these games. And they don't just slightly correct and guide studios like all these articles claim. Digging a bit deeper also reveals that the CEO of Sweet Baby Inc., Kim Belair, lied as well. In her public interview, she stated that Sweet Baby Inc. never injects diversity into video games and that it's not their goal to do so. However, taking a closer look at a small podcast on YouTube called AC Sisterhood that she was featured on reveals that this is exactly their intention.
Are you able to influence how many or in what manner women and minorities are included at the planning stage of a game? Or can you only give feedback on existing characters already in the script?
What I prefer to do, and I don't really call it sensitivity reading, but I think of it as just, bringing representation to something, is trying to build a narrative and a story that include moments and elements custom made to bring representation and joy to people, because that's kind of where Sweet Baby lands on it. It's that I did a talk at GDC called Representation as Innovation, and for me, the idea that we can create something new, create something exciting, create something fun, if we go in and from the ground up build something that includes everybody, it's a lot stronger.
In the last clip, she mentioned doing a talk at GDC, and in this talk, she directly addresses straight white cis men and urges them to involve Sweet Baby Inc. and their consultants at the very beginning of the development, so that Sweet Baby Inc. can be as included as possible in the process, even going as far as to say you need to terrify the people working on the games by telling them what will happen if they don't work with them.
And if you're in development and you are part of that dominant voice, you're like a cis hetero white dude or just adjacent to that, do not wait until the end to call your consultants. Bring them in at the beginning, and instead of asking them, hey, is this very racist thing we did very racist? Or is this deeply offensive thing we did deeply offensive? Are you hurt by it? Ask them what they want to see. Ask them what would thrill them, what would bring them joy. And if you have a team lead, put that request to them very, very early. If you're a creative working in AAA, which I did for many, many years, put this stuff up to your higher-ups. And if they don't see the value in what you're asking for when you ask for consultants, when you ask for research, go have a coffee with your marketing team and just terrify them with the possibility of what's going to happen if they don't give you what you want.
So this big disconnect between what the media is trying to convince us and what Sweet Baby Inc. actually does plays a big role in this entire outrage. Because the media is telling us one thing, but their CEO does the exact opposite. And even without these clips, you can just see that by playing the games in which Sweet Baby Inc. has been involved. Now, that's not to say that Sweet Baby Inc. is responsible for every single problem in gaming today, because that would be stupid. But it's an example of why there are so many problems, because there are hundreds of companies just like Sweet Baby Inc. and they do the exact same thing and the demand is there. It just so happens that Sweet Baby Inc. is the target of all this backlash because of a few bad tweets, and for the majority of people this is the first time they hear about a company like this. The creator of the Steam page has come out on Twitter and said that he's working on an entire website dedicated to finding and listing games that have any connection with DEI companies and not just Sweet Baby Inc. DEI meaning diversity, equity, and inclusion. So this could be the next big step in exposing even more companies that are involved in gaming that we didn't even know of. And it could bring another even bigger wave of backlash on the entire gaming industry.